Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the book of Deuteronomy. Today we're looking at the last part of Deuteronomy chapter 12. We're going to read verses 29 through 31. I've seen the last couple of sessions that Deuteronomy chapter 12 dealt with the place of worship. After the Israelites were in possession of the promised land, they were to set up one central place of worship where the tabernacle would be established, to which the Israelites would come to bring their offerings, their sacrifices, to worship the Lord. They were also told to destroy the high places of the Canaanites. The Canaanites worshiped their false gods, the idols, on those high places, and the Israelites were to destroy them lest they fall into the idolatry of the Canaanite people. And then the chapter concludes with again a reminder: do not worship as the Canaanites worship. Do not follow their ways. Notice what it says, verses 29 through 31 of chapter 12. Now the Lord your God will cut off before you the nations you are about to invade and dispossess. But when you have driven them out and settled in their land, and after they have been destroyed before you, be careful not to be ensnared by inquiring about their gods, saying, how do these nations serve their gods? We must do the same. You must not worship the Lord your God in their way, because in worshiping their gods, they do all kinds of detestable things that the Lord hates. So again, there's that warning against idolatry. After you've taken possession of the land, do not be ensnared or tempted by the question, well, how do the Canaanites worship their gods? What were their worship practices? Maybe we should worship in the same way. Now, why would the Israelites be so ensnared? Why would that be a temptation? Why would the question even come up? How do they worship? Maybe we should worship in their way. It's because of the way they thought in Old Testament times. In the culture of the Old Testament, most people sort of thought of it this way. There were different gods who ruled over different nations. And when you went into a different territory, you needed to worship the God of that territory in the way he had proclaimed. Now, these gods were false gods. They were idols, but this is the way the people thought. So over the Canaanites were their gods like Baal and Asherah. And so if you go into the land of Canaan, you have to worship their gods the way they do it in the land of Canaan. Likewise, if you were to go back to Egypt, you would have to worship the Egyptian gods in the Egyptian way. So because of the culture of the time, because of the way they thought, it would be a natural temptation for the Israelites to say, well, we're in Canaan now. How did the Canaanites worship their gods? Maybe since we're in their territory, we should worship in the same way. For instance, you see this kind of thinking later on in the story of Israel. If you turn to the book of 2 Kings chapter 5, there is a Syrian general by the name of Naaman who comes to see the prophet of the Lord, Elisha, hoping that Elisha can heal him of leprosy. Remember, that's the story where Elisha says, go dip in the Jordan River 7 times. And then Naaman came up and he was clean. The leprosy was gone. Well, you know the story well. Remember, after the story, Naaman said to Elisha, I have to go back to Syria and serve my master the king. But I now realize that the God of Israel is truly God, and I want to worship him. I don't want to worship the Syrian idol anymore. I want to worship the God of Israel. And he asked Elisha permission. He says, can I take some dirt back with me? Can I take some dirt back with me so I can worship the God of Israel? Now, why did he want to take dirt back with him? What was the deal there? Well, in their way of thinking, in the land of Israel, you worship the Israelite God. He wanted to worship the God of Israel. He thought he had to have the land of Israel with him in order to worship the Israelite God. And of course, Elisha just said, go in peace. He didn't even engage with that. But that's the way they thought in those days. So there would be a natural temptation if you went into Canaan, you're on Canaanite land, maybe we better worship the way the Canaanites did. So Moses tells them, don't do it. Don't you fall into that trap. You worship only the God of Israel. The land of Canaan will be yours. You're going to destroy those high places. Don't even ask the question, how did the Canaanites worship? The land is now yours. It belongs to God. God is God. Don't pay any attention to how they worship. Don't be entrapped by idolatry. And so they were told, Don't even ask the question. You're not going to worship like the Canaanites did, because their worship leads you to idolatry and it leads you away from the Lord. And you must worship only the Lord your God. Of course, the same is true for us. Sometimes the culture, the society around us tempts us to worship in ways that are contrary to the ways of God. And we must always say no to our society when it tries to lure us into other types of worship practices. We must worship only the Lord, who is God, who has revealed himself to us in the pages of the Scripture and supremely in Jesus Christ, his Son. Hope you join us tomorrow. We'll start looking at the next chapter, chapter 13, in our 5-minute Bible study in the book of Deuteronomy.